I'd like to call the Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018 Park Advisory Commission meeting to order. And Colin, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Gallardi.
Here.
Commissioner Santa Croce is not here. Commissioner Morrison.
Here.
Commissioner Kraut. Commissioner Borgsdorf. Commissioner Ramaswamy.
Here.
Commissioner London.
Here.
Commissioner Apple. You have a quorum. And council members Grand and Crapall are in attendance.
Thank you. Next, we have the minutes of the December 19th, 2017 PAC meeting. They're in your packet. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Alan, seconded by Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. Item D, public commentary. 3 minutes per speaker. I don't see any members of the public here right now. So we'll move on to item E, special presentations. Item E1, we have a review of the 2017 season for Argo and Gallup liveries. And we have Cheryl Somm and Josh Landefeld here with us today.
Hi. Let's see if I can get this to work. So the Gallup and Argo, I'm the recreation supervisor of Argo and Gallup canoe liveries. The two canoe liveries are run together, same staff, same boats, pretty much same operation, just two different locations. So the City of Ann Arbor Canoe Liveries, we're the largest livery operation in the state with 550 boats, about 50 tubes. More than 400 of those boats are kayaks, so that certainly is the popular boat choice. Over 2,000 customers on a busy weekend day, and 80 to 100,000 people per year rent boats out of our livery. Gallup is our downstream location, located in Gallup Park, of course, and we offer the river trip that's the longer of the two. It takes about 2.5 hours. We drive people up to the base of Barton Dam, and then you paddle back down to Gallup. And then also still water paddling in 2 Mile Gallup Pond, which is basically from the Arb down to Dixboro Dam. We offer river camps, programs. We rent the Gallup Park meeting room. We have a coffee shop there with concessions. And of course, Gallup is a very popular park in itself. Argo Park Canoe Livery is our upstream location. It offers the popular 3.7 mile. It takes about an hour-and-a-half river trip. So it's the easiest trip that we can do the largest groups with, that you just put people right in the river, right off the dock at Argo, paddle down to Gallup, and we then give them a van ride back up to Argo Canoe Livery. And there's also still water paddling there in Argo Pond, which is 2 miles. We do our stand-up paddle boards there, versus at Gallup we have paddle boats, so a little bit different boat choice, but they all have kayaks and canoes as well. And then we do tube rentals, which are just in the Argo Cascades. You stay in the Cascades in our tubes, kind of like a sled run. You tube down, hike back up. We don't do transportation with our tubes. Also river camps, programs, and concessions. And, oops, jumped forward. The river trips are 66% of our boat rentals, which this number has changed over the years. It used to be 50-50. So I think with the popularity of the Argo Cascades, and more adventure to go down the river seems to have increased popularity of river trips, which have required us to do more vans, trailers, really up our game for the river trips. And as you can see, the Argo to Gallup, the shorter river trip is by far the longest, or the most common river trip that we do. And in fact, we no longer drive up to Delhi. And no one wants that 4-hour river trip. It's a tough trip. So we've really just concentrated with the river section here in Ann Arbor. Whoa, I am going all over the place. So still water paddling is 30% of all the boat rentals. It's perfect for novice paddlers, so the beginners can just jump in a boat and go. It's less cost because you're not paying for that van and trailer. It's easier for us. We're not loading trailers, loading vans. People can just get in the river right away. Good introduction, great for kids. And an important part of this is it's available for high and low water. When we have to shut down the river trip for high water conditions, that the river's too dangerous to go down the current, we can always stay open, keep people just in the ponds at both Argo and Gallup. And same thing with low water. The river can get so low that you're dragging your boat all the way down the river, and we're cautioning people, so many people choose then to do the still water. Tubing is 4% of our rentals, hardly a boat. But it's increased in popularity as if any of you have gone down the river on a hot summer day, you will see a lot of people in their own tubes. So it's a big growth in Ann Arbor. You'll see people just walking down the streets, heading down to the river with a tube around their waist, and it provides a really great, low-cost, wonderful recreation for people to get outside and have their own tube and just get out on the river. We do have a tube website now connected with our sites to try to direct the tubes into where to park and how to go down the river, how to get back to their car, try to keep them out of parking at Argo and Gallup because that's not the ideal place for a tube to park, and which length of river, because a current is better, so all that's better for tubes. So the livery staff, we take 100 seasonal staff is my goal this year to hire. It takes a lot of staff to manage the liveries, it's a very staff-intensive job. The staff are, the seasonal staff at the canoe liveries, I would say, are really exceptional. It takes patience, strength, and friendly to be able to manage and to work at the liveries. It's hard work, but the seasonal supervisors and I really work hard in creating that culture for them to succeed and also for the customer to have a good time. So we spend a lot of time with our customer service. We do extensive staff training, and that involves customer service, van and trailer driving, because of course all of them need to be trained to drive vehicles and back up trailers. Risk management, we have the fire and police come and present at our trainings to educate the staff on river rescues and their role. How to manage our customers, and then knowledgeable. You really have to know the river. You have to match people with the correct boats, big people in big boats, or otherwise they flip. So there's just a lot that you have to discover and learn to work at the liveries. We also have river festivals and programs. About 5,000 people a year attend our programs. The 38th year on River Days this year, we've moved it to May, so we're trying a new spring date. We have night paddles that we stay open late, a trick-or-treat paddle that we partner with Give 365, kayak sup courses, stand-up paddle boards or sups, and it's just to teach people how to boat, just lots and lots of different programs, more ways for people to get down to the river. It includes our river day camps, are ever popular. They fill before the summer even begins. We have the big kids at Argo. What fun for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to just do a different section of river, to stand-up paddleboard, tube, kayak, canoe, catch bugs, whatever. It's a great way to get outside right in town. Groups are a big part of our business pretty much every day. We have groups, so it's team building with local businesses, University of Michigan. So this is the hockey team up there in one of the corners. And then school groups, like every single 9th grader at Huron High School does the Argo to Gallup trip. So they start at Argo, paddle down. Middle schools, lots and lots of school groups come through, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, offices, just you name it. So we really manage a lot. And groups of up to like 200 people or something we'll be able to put on the river. So lots of fun there too. So managing the liveries, of course, the staff take a lot of management, just making sure everybody's trained and doing the right thing. And our equipment, we have, boats are always breaking, and we have all the life jackets and paddles and just everything that goes with that. And the infrastructure improvements, we're always looking at innovative ways to improve the whole operation. We'll have 200 people in line, so how can we get that line moving as efficiently as possible and get people out on the river as quickly as possible? So it involves more vans, trailers, circling better layout of our counter space. The river, we have water levels that go too high, too low. Every day we're looking at that water level and making sure that we're doing the appropriate, best way to get people out on the river, if at all. We do aquatic plant harvesting in Gallup Pond, so right in front of the canoe livery there, and then also a straight shot out from the public boat launch, just so we can get boats to our dock. We also do take good care of the river. We're stewards of the river in that we write a grant each year from the state to do river cleanups with Give 365 and the Huron River Watershed Council to really keep the trash out of the river. And then I think people then become good stewards of the river as well if they can find that it's clean. Risk management is a big part of our job. We have the fire department, of course, that does our river rescues. And then we also have police that patrol the parks, both Gallup, Argo, the Cascades, just really make a presence and just walking up and down the parks. And I feel like this has done a lot to control the you know, the culture of the Cascades and the alcohol use and such there. So crowds, parking, at Argo, we've done some improvements. We had a dedicated parking supervisor this year and a couple of staff that worked with him. We improved our signage. So as soon as the Argo livery area is full, we stop people there on Swift Street that they circle around and go to the Eye Center, the Kellogg Eye Center on Wall Street. That lot was really well utilized on the weekends. And we also put additional signage out there, like have your own tube, park here, to try to keep people from just staying out of the Argo area and immediately park at Wall Street. Both at Argo and Gallup, we did a better defined parking. So we just like squared off the parking spots. You can see here at Gallup, it used to just be like this big mess on the grass. So we just, and at Argo too, we just improved the public boat launch parking to just really make it well defined and so easier to control that way and keep the cars off the grass. Gallup also fills on the weekends, and so we've now are putting sandwich board signs at Furstenberg and at Huron High to try to drive people to park at other locations besides in the park, since that's full as well. And then our queues, we have big lines. And so, you know, every day at Argo, you open up those gates, and there'll be maybe 50 people in line. It builds up to 200, and throughout the day, especially on the weekends, you have a line all day. So it's really managing those lines and trying to get people educated in the line so they can efficiently sign up for their boat, and we can keep that flowing and get people out on the river. The number of people in livery boats, as you can see, our numbers have grown except for last year. So in 2012, the Argo Cascades was the first year we're open. So that's the first jump that we saw in growth. We continued to grow. The fiscal year 2016 was the perfect year. We had perfect weather and we had perfect water conditions. And then in 2017, July, August, we had low water. We couldn't rent canoes. We couldn't rent rafts. And it damaged a lot of our kayaks, so we were down boats as we were trying to fix them. The fall had bad weather weekends, spring had bad weather weekends, and then we had high water. April, May, and June, the river trips are closed, so that happens some years, and that's, so far in 2018, we look like we're running at about the same numbers as 2016. So it's probably back up, but we'll see what spring brings. The general fund and revenue and expenses kind of go along with that. The more people, the more expense. Seasonal staff is a big part of the expense. As you can see, we do contribute to the general fund each year. So river recreation in Ann Arbor, we have a clean, beautiful river. It's accessible for everyone living in Southeast Michigan or around the area to come down to the river. We are open every day, April through October, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. We have lots of different kinds of boats, different experience for people. So young, old, novice, or expert paddlers can all come down. We do river programs to try to invite and open up the river. The Cascades have been wildly successful. It's just plain fun, you know, it's just really fun to be out on the river. Growing popularity of paddle sports nationwide, especially kayaks. People are coming out with their own kayaks like crazy too, so the river's full of that. The Huron River Water Trail is designated a water trail by the National Park Service, and the Huron River Watershed Council was instrumental in that. And they also did an economic impact of what the Huron River does, and water-based recreation is a key segment of Michigan economy, and the Huron River is a vital economic driver for Southeast Michigan. People come, enjoy the river, go out to dinner, and the National Geographic, if you saw, just recently named Michigan as one of the best cities and called out that 2 of our 159 parks offer canoe rentals where you can paddle the river right through the city. So we're really lucky to have this great space, a great river. So we look forward to a successful, safe, and fun river season this year. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Cheryl. Any
Sure.
questions? Alan?
Try to get this thing to work. I think I read in the paper that the university was going to build a new parking structure at the lot that you guys are using.
No, it's next door.
It's next door.
Yeah, so
okay,
it's between Maiden Lane and Wall Street, and
Okay, so it's
we
a
rent the
little-
lot, or you utilize the lot that's
Oh,
between
okay,
Wall Street and the
phew,
river.
okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, got
Yes.
it. I was reading it on my phone, so I
Yeah.
get full size on that.
Yes.
And then the aquatic plant cleanup at Gallup. You know,
Yeah.
I've heard some people say that that's not really effective. Really, what you ought to do is dredging rather than just try to remove it. How would you gauge it working?
We have reduced the number of aquatic plants over the last few years that we've started doing this. It became a real problem, like, what was it, 6 years ago or so?
I
That
think
really started choking.
Yeah, I think we started it in 2013. So
Yeah.
staff within the city, there were park staff, environmental coordinator staff, water quality staff put this together, and it seemed like an effective way to kind of attack that problem.
And it is reducing it. We could dredge someday. We did, I believe, in the 1990s, so that may at some point be determined. It's not great either in that you just clean the bottom of the river and then all the invasives are the first to come back. You know, so
Right.
there's pros and cons of all of this.
Sure.
Luckily, Argo Pond has a pretty good current all the way through, so that stays open for boating. And then same with Gallup on the other side of the island. So it's very localized areas that we needed to do our harvesting.
Okay, Praveena.
Thank you. Can you remind us when we open, or when you open and close, what your season is?
Yep, so mid-April, so this year, April 14th, and then we close October 25th this year. So kind of mid-April to the 3rd, like the weekend before Halloween. Yeah.
Ruth.
Yeah, and I might have missed this because I came in a little late, but could you talk about, like, is the participation, the canoeing, kayaking, tubing, is it like 80% on the weekend and 20% during the week, or what does that kind of distribution look
interesting.
like?
Yeah, it used to be like 10 times is what I would say on a weekend versus weekday. And I think partly our weekend crowds have now drove people to go on weekdays, and that's been where our growth is. Because weekends, we're pretty maxed out. You know, we're just, all the boats are rented and that's it. So now it's, we've been surprised with that and have had to really increase our staff on weekdays to accommodate. So now it's probably a half as busy on a weekday. So let's say a revenue at Argo would be like 18,000 on a weekend, and we'll hit like 9 or something on a weekday. Yeah, especially Fridays. You know, so those Mondays and Fridays. Yeah.
I have one more, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
I know this was a discussion a couple, maybe last year, was with regards to parking
Yeah.
and people who lived or residents in the area. And it sounds like you have new measures with police on site and parking measures. Have you seen an improvement? Have you heard from residents?
Certainly, the residents really complimented us this year and made a point of going up to the parking staff supervisor and saying, like, thank you, great job. You no longer can park on Wright Street, where that was a big change. So that really pushed the crowds off of that residential street there. And then now we stay at the corner of like Wright, Longshore, Swift, and direct people out Swift Street before they even enter down into Argo. So really trying to keep people out. Very few complaints.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in terms of this year compared to the last few years, there's been very, very few complaints that have come, say, to my level or to a council level. I think there's a realization by most that we are absolutely doing everything that we can to continually evaluate how things are working there, and if there's an opportunity for improvements, we're going to do it. So, and I mean, a huge amount of the credit obviously goes to Cheryl and her staff. She spoke about that she's got 100 seasonal staff now, and that's, I think, a great story in and of itself, like as an employer within the city for young people, oftentimes maybe their first job, but certainly like an early job in their lives, and they work hard. This is not an easy summer job by any means, and they have to learn how to work with other people. They have to learn, you know, to work with contentious situations, and Cheryl does just a great job of creating an environment where they can succeed, you know, to do that. And every year, actually, we get a letter or two from employees who actually worked for Cheryl, who, after a long, hard summer of doing that, actually write to say thank you, and they might actually pursue something like this in the future. So I just think that's great.
Do you have a sense of how many of those seasonal employees are repeats? So how many people,
Yeah,
like percentage-wise,
I
will
hope
come
for
back?
50%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
From year
that's,
to year.
that's,
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty good. People come back. It's quite like a family, really. I've been to a couple of weddings of employees. Yes, there you go. So, yeah, it's, they enjoy the friendship and the hard work, and it's a fun place to work. So, yeah, many come back. It's great. Otherwise, we'd be in trouble.
And that actually holds true for almost all of the recreation facilities. If you ask their staff, like, how many people come back each year, it's usually right around 50%, which is great, because those are people we want back, and those are people who already know what they're doing and can help us train also new people.
Yeah, and I
So-
hope to have them grow through, like they start as a dock staff, then they move up to driving a van, and then they go into camp or become a supervisor, you know, that they can go up to try to, the good ones can rise up.
Bob, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. A little more mundane, I guess, because I think the employees are great. I actually know one that worked there is now in South Carolina working
Lilyhorn?
in the field. Yeah, Lilyhorn. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Jared's a favorite.
I'm curious about the equipment. I know, I heard you say that repairs and things like that. Is there a plan for equipment replacement and things like that? Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
I meant to actually touch on that. So this year, for example, I bought 61 boats.
Okay.
Last year, we bought 100, I think. It was it, that one order. I don't think I get any. So depending on what's needed, double and single kayaks. And then we just move out the canoes because those are rented. People want kayaks, partly because that's the only boat that goes through the Cascades, and partly that's what's popular. And then we have boat auctions in the fall and the spring. So each boat auction will be 30, 40 boats. So that would, I would say each year we'll do 50 to 100. It ended up last year at 100 just because many of the boats were bought when the Cascades opened. And so you had this like huge inventory that
Okay.
all fell apart all at the same time, basically. We do a lot of plastic welding, boat repair, riveting, as much as you can until you're finally like, okay, no, we fixed this boat too many times. So it's a continual, it'll be a continual work. And usually millage money, I would
Yeah,
say.
it is a annual operating expense, which we have in the budget for the liveries. Again, it can range each year on the number of boats, but there'll oftentimes be a resolution which we bring to PAC in the winter of, for the appropriate amount.
Okay.
Just following up on that, do you foresee a future without the canoe in our parks?
Yeah, in fact, my supervisors, when we met at the end of last year, they were like, can we get rid of canoes? I'm like, no,
No.
we're a canoe livery. We cannot get rid of canoe. So, yeah, it just keeps going down and down. It's really interesting. No, I think we'll always have some canoes. First, I want to teach all those day camp kids how to canoe. It's a great family craft in the pond, you know, that you can go out there. I like canoeing too. But yes, no, I think we'll keep canoes. And we do allow the canoes for the Argo Gallop trip. We just launched below Argo Dam or below the Cascades. Just less.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for coming, Cheryl. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item F, new business. Item F1, a resolution to recommend increasing the funding for a partnership agreement with Community Action Network for the management of Bryant and Northside Community Centers from $130,000 to $150,000 for fiscal year 2018. Colin, can you give us some info?
Yeah, I can provide some information on this in terms of background. As you remember, last month, actually, the Community Action Network came to PAC to report annually, as they do. And one of the things that's very clear is that Community Action Network has been providing services for the city since 2008. Their existing contract, they're in year 4 of a 5-year contract with us. And in the time of the current contract, the amount of need and the amount of programs and the amount of services which CAN has been able to provide in those neighborhoods has increased substantially, but the funding has not. So we have an opportunity this year as a result of the park's fairness resolution, which allocates additional monies into the operating fund for parks for operating expenses exactly like this. We're a little over halfway through the year. I think that the amount that we're suggesting here is very reasonable within the budget. We can manage that. And I think it would go a long way, obviously, to helping operations this current year. I know there were questions last month about what about the next year? Well, I can't guarantee anything for the next year. We'll need to wait and see how the budget actually plays out for FY19, which we'll know in May of this year. But if there is, for example, additional fairness resolution money for the upcoming year, this could certainly be something that would be allocated toward. I guess the last thing I'd say is it ties in very nicely with what PAC has kind of highlighted in the budget resolution the last number of years to council, which is providing access to all, and especially in underserved areas and neighborhoods that could use additional support. So I think the ability to do this year is helpful, and I think the right thing to do, frankly.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Any questions or points of discussion? Yes, Julie.
So, I mean, I'm obviously 1,000% in support of this. Just looking forward to 19. Well, it's certainly the hope that we can just get it into the budget. Can also does work for another commission that I am liaison to, which is the Housing Commission, and is in a similar situation. So I think there could potentially be opportunities if there is an issue for a one-time allocation, and I'm happy to entertain that and get the two parties together and make that happen, or try to make it happen, and hope that others vote and support me in doing so.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to thank Colin for bringing this resolution forward.
Thank you.
Great. Is there any further discussion, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Motion by Praveena, seconded by Ruth. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item F2, a resolution recommending approval of fiscal year 2019 fee adjustments for Parks and Recreation Services for Argo and Gallup liveries. Colin, I'll turn it back to you for background.
Okay. So this is a resolution to increase the fees at Argo and Gallup canoe liveries. I'm just trying to get my papers in order here. And the purpose behind the proposed fee increase is to actually develop what I would consider like a user surcharge, where we capture some of the revenue on the boat rentals and reserve it for the purpose of upcoming capital expenses that we will have at Argo and also Getty's dams. I know that the commission has spoken a little bit about, we have in the CIP in 2020, there's a $1.1 million repair for Argo and for Getty's Dam. This fee increase would certainly not cover that entire amount, but it would provide us a situation where we're beginning to build up a fund to pay for those types of repairs, both then and into the future, because it will have to be done again in the future. I spoke to Commissioner Gallardi about this because of the budget implications, and I think that we're kind of in agreement that putting together an approach or a partial solution to kind of a larger problem is at least a way forward, and kind of a recognition that there really is a kind of additional need for funding to help with the dams. Expenses for the dams can be paid for out of the millage and have been, but a $1.1 million expense in 1 year eats up almost all of our capital funding for that year. So it seems like a responsible thing to do down the road, starting today.
Yeah. Bob, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, just a couple of points. When we discuss this, now, we've known about this and have been trying to put together something to say we need to have a sustainable path forward for this kind of funding. This is, as I said to Colin, this is probably the low-hanging fruit on this. And we're going to have further discussions that will involve other departments within the city to make sure that what we do is something that responsibly takes us forward. We don't have to make we're not going to make $1 million investments every year, but if we can put chunk money away, put it in, an identified account, much like we do with vehicles and things like that, then we should be in a position to be able to sustain this on an ongoing basis. But it is something that will require collaboration, cooperation with a number of departments, but this is the first step. And at least to me, it's a step that says that that our department, our commission is very serious about this, serious about being a partner on this, and serious about moving forward.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Alan?
With regard to this, so that capital cost, that's really just a repair cost. There's no other features or improvements, because there had been discussion about like a rapids feature, years ago. Yeah.
Right, that does not include in this.
Right.
This is for, essentially the capital maintenance repairs on the dams.
Yeah, and then this capital, so what is it considered to be a park capital expense, or is it more broadly a city capital expense?
Well, I think the easiest way to say that is the dams are considered recreational dams. They don't produce any power. They don't have anything to do with the water supply. So they are recreational in nature. A large part of the revenue that we're able to generate at the liveries is in part because of the dams being there to allow for things like pond paddles. This conversation, it was actually, I think it was back in 2011, 2012, when we did the Huron River Impoundment Plan. There was kind of the recognition that Argo and also Getty's Dam had to come under the purview of parks. I think prior to that, I'm not sure if I'm correct in this, but I think that utility funds may have helped to maintain them, which is not allowable, which is why we're the owner, in short.
Ruth?
Well, just to follow up on that, though, if we were to say we don't want them anymore, or the dams, or we don't want to maintain them, then that would involve what? I'm not advocating that. I'm just trying to, because I guess like Alan, I thought that it was more of a broad city responsibility and not.
Well, I would say that
Department.
all kind of large infrastructure is, of course, like a broad city responsibility, but it starts within the departments, and then kind of goes from there. But in terms of if you did not want the dams, I think that's probably twofold. One is if you just decided that you didn't want to maintain them, there would still be a cost to obviously removing them. But I think the main thing is that conversation or debate was held rather vigorously for a long period of time, and council made the decision a number of years back that this is where we're at. So I would say before I even am comfortable having that discussion, I would need something from council directing staff to actually look at that.
So just to be clear, I was not proposing that we have
No, I understand.
that discussion, and I'm not opposed to raising the fees either. Although, it does occur to me as fees go up that we should look at ways if we want to introduce paddling to families that may have fewer resources, that we should, just like we have scholarships for some of the camps, that we should look at that for this kind of activity as well.
Yeah, and I think we are allowing scholarship use for rentals as it is that right, Cheryl?
No, just camps and.
Just camps right now? Yeah, I think that's certainly something that we can explore, and I think would be good to do. Yeah.
Lauren?
Yeah, that was, it seems reasonable to me. I'm just wondering, with this great amount of expense, it seems like we may have deferred some maintenance prior, maybe not. Maybe this is just kind of the price point of the maintenance that these dams require periodically. Do you have a sense of how often these kinds of maintenance, should be done? Are we late with it? Is it going to be kind of a?
So the $1.1 million one is probably every 20 to 25 years. Yeah, that's, I think, about right with that. And the dams are actually inspected by the state.
Okay.
So they come by, and when we look at this project in 2020 for the $1.1 million, we're going to evaluate and see if they both need to be done at that time. If they don't, and we can defer one out a number of years, then we're obviously going to do that.
Sure. It certainly seems to be the responsible thing to start
Yeah.
saving and planning for it.
Yeah, and the state inspection for the Gettys Dam, I think it's probably fair to say, I would imagine that we're going to be repairing that one before we would repair the Argo one. Just from.
Yeah.
No, just out of curiosity, how much would need to be put aside, each year to meet that need, assuming it's the same need every 20 years or whatever you think, so.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're going to look into. I've been actually working already with the staff at the water treatment plant, because they know a lot more about dams than I do.
Right, plus they're downstream of that dam, and they probably don't want it to go away, so.
Right, this could also be, but I'm asking them to put together basically a 30-year look at what sort of things would you expect after 5 years, after 10, after 30, when it is a larger capital repair like the one that we expect in 2020. So I think we'll have more of that information soon. But, doing some very quick, in my head, we come out with this, if we were to approve this, it would generate about $70,000 to $75,000 a year for dam maintenance, which if we had in place 20 years ago, I mean, obviously accounted for inflation and all sorts of other things. If we had that in place, we would have been in a position where this would have been basically a non-topic. And so I think it's actually a pretty good annual amount as a departure point, in the sense that it allows for a lot to be generated over time. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I'll say is the fee increases are modest and kind of in line with other groups. Of course, it seems like there's other liveries that are going past those dams also that wouldn't be bearing those costs. However, it is our city, so it's our responsibility to deal with it, so. So, yeah.
Yep.
I have a question, basically, what Cheryl said. So Cheryl mentioned an increase in the number of users who are bringing their own kayaks and tubes. Do they pay any sort of fee if they bring their own kayak?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard. I think anytime you try to kind of apportion costs to the use of like a water body, it's difficult, because
Yeah.
somebody wants to go out and fish, they have their permit, well, they're gonna fish,
Right.
and we can't say we need $1 from you because we had the dam down. So I think we look where we do have kind of identified groups and places where we can actually put something like this together. And on a very much smaller scale, there was the lease about half a year ago now that we approved with Ann Arbor Rowing Club for the boathouse at Bandimere. And if you'll remember, a portion of their annual rent is actually escrowed, for lack of better terms, towards the maintenance of Argo Dam. You know, it's a comparatively smaller amount, but it's trying to identify users and responsibility.
Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Motion by Lauren,
Second.
second by Ellen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item F3, resolution to recommend approval of a contract with Aquatic Source LLC for the Veterans Park Pool Mechanical Improvements Project in the amount of $240,000. And we have Hillary Hansel and Chris Ellenbass to talk with us.
Yeah, so hi everyone, Chris Ellenbass is here from our Public Works Department. He's a civil engineer helping on this project. And for your review is a contract with Aquatic Source for $240,000 to upgrade mechanical equipment at Vets Park Pool. And basically the existing mechanical system has kind of reached the end of its useful life. There's been ongoing maintenance issues over the past few years, and so that's kind of led to this need to replace it. And Chris, I don't know if you have any additional information you'd like to provide.
Yeah, so the pool, we have an existing sand filter. All 4 pools have sand filters. This plan has a new regenerative media filter being installed. So really, I mean, that's the main piece of this. We're also doing a couple other things. We are replacing all the piping, we're replacing the main pool pump, and then also the pump out at the, for the accessories as well as the slide. We got one bid. It was a little discouraging to get only one bid. Really a couple things led to that. We were kind of schedule-wise, we were locked in. We pretty much had to put this out for bid kind of in the holiday season. And our schedule, once we go forward with this, is pretty aggressive. So while we only got the one bid for 240, I think it's within kind of the budget we had allocated and anticipated. And so I think we're feel confident going forward. I did check references on Aquatic Source, and they have done recent projects with good response back from other communities. And then I guess going to kind of the benefits, as you go to this kind of filter, we're gonna use a lot less water. So you're looking at about 170,000 gallons over the course of the pool season, so only over 3 months. And so in doing so, you're gonna save both on water use, heating costs, as well as chemical costs. And then I guess finally we are installing a VFD on the main pool pump, and so that'll allow us to basically reduce the flow rate during off hours. So at night we're going to be able to turn down the pool, give us a little bit additional energy savings that way. So we're looking at about $5,000 savings from if we had gone with another sand filter. So I guess just another benefit to the project.
And I think you'd also mentioned there'd be improved water quality as well.
We're definitely going to see improved water quality. Certainly from what we've had these past few seasons, because it really has been operating efficiently. But if we were to go with another sand filter, this is definitely going to provide a drastically better feeling for the users. So.
And Chris, remind me, the existing equipment was installed in the 90s, correct?
So so all the pools were upgraded in the early to mid 90s. So Vets was 1993. I think we're really looking at this as kind of a test project for the other pools. So if everything goes good, we're happy. We're seeing the energy savings. I think over the near future, we'll then roll out this similar technology at all our other pools. I think we're looking, to go to this filter, I think is maybe about a $30,000 extra versus if we were to stick with the old style, but with $5,000 savings every year, we're gonna pay that back pretty quickly, so.
And it is also important, I think, because it really keeps in line with a lot of the council initiatives these days for the green fleets and whatever we can do when we're looking to replace infrastructure that can help to accomplish those goals, we should certainly look into. And here it also makes a ton of sense because I think we're probably going to save more than the $5,000 a year, honestly. I think, yeah, it should be quicker in terms of a payback if you want to look at it that way too. And as a person who used to work at the pools and some of the equipment rooms, they are all of about that age. They're starting to get to the end of their useful life. It's exciting to see kind of what the equipment is now compared to what it was and how effective it sounds like it can be.
Are there any questions? Alan?
So I have a question, the filter that's utilized, is it a proprietary design, or can you get, from various manufacturers
So you can get it from various manufacturers.
Oh, okay, and the filter costs are modest?
I think the filter itself, I don't have the exact, but you're probably looking at, out of the entire 240,000, probably in the, say, 70,000 just for the actual filter itself.
Yeah, but you have to replace that periodically, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, well, you're talking, no, so the filter, sorry, I was getting a little confused. So
okay.
like on the old style, you would replace the sand. So
Sure, yeah.
in this new style, you replace, I guess in this one, it's called perlite. It's kind of the media that goes into it. So you're talking
So is
about.
that like that potting soil stuff, or is it like a wafer sort of thing?
It's not really. I guess it's hard to explain. It's a very fine material.
Mm-hmm.
And so like every year when the pool season ends, someone will have to go out, you'll vacuum out the old stuff, put in the new stuff. We're talking, I mean, pretty minor ongoing expense, similar to kind of the what we would have to do every 5 years replacing the sand. Equivalent cost to that.
And also much, much quicker being able to replace this than the existing sand filters, if you haven't seen them, are pretty enormous structures, and they are not easy to work in or around. And there's only so many times that you want to open up their actual valve to.
I mean,
they're hard to maintain.
We hire that process out, and then with the new filter, we more than likely it's a few bags of the material. Our own staff could potentially do it instead of having to go out and hire someone to do that stuff. So that's good. Yeah.
Bob?
If this gets passed, what's the timeline for installation?
So we're going to be moving pretty quick here. If it goes, council gets approved, I'm going to be running the contracts around. And it's a 6 to 8 week lead time on the filters. So that, I mean, basically we're going to, mid-February, hopefully have signed contracts, and basically push to get that unit so that then we basically have, hopefully, most April, May to get everything up and ready to go for the pool season. I mean, our goal is to have it up. And I mean, I think we're pretty confident as long as the equipment gets here in time, that we can get it in. Worst case, you would have to get the equipment, okay, we can't do it, hold them off until the end of the pool season. But I think we're in a position where we feel like it's needed. We're at risk going forward with the existing equipment.
Yeah, it is very much the goal to get this and also the pool liner, which you guys approved a few months ago, to get those in place for the start of this season. And it is just, no matter what you do, it is pretty tight schedule for all of this because the plans had to be approved by the state before this could go out to bid because the state inspects these kind of pool enhancements, and everything's pretty tight, but it should work.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Ruth,
I'll second.
Well, your turn.
second by
I'll second,
Praveena.
sure.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great, motion passes, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, Hillary, you could probably just stay right there.
Yeah.
So, item F4, resolution to recommend approval of a 3-year professional services agreement for playground improvement services for Parks and Recreation for a not-to-exceed annual amount of $200,000.
Great, so this is a contract with Michigan Recreational Construction, or MRC as we call them. And so this same company was under contract for the previous 3 years to provide these same ongoing services on an as-needed basis. And they've really done an excellent job. We've been very happy with their work. They really do anything from smaller scale repairs, installing benches, replacing surfacing and edging, to larger scale installations. And they actually also worked on the construction of the new universal access playground at Gallup Park. So it's great, they're a company that has the full breadth of knowledge and experience to really, do any scale project for us. They have a full range of services that include things like pavement design and hardscape, as well as surfacing and edging. So it's been really great for the Parks Department to have their services. And we did only receive 1 bid, but we do feel confident selecting MRC. We compared their fees to the previous contract, and there's just, small, modest cost of living increases. And this work is rather specialized. There are a lot of companies that can do playground installation, but they don't necessarily have the full breadth of services that MRC provides. So, in the upcoming years, we anticipate MRC kind of assisting with upgrading play equipment at several playgrounds. Some of the ones we're looking at might be Kelly Park or Churchill Downs or Waymarket Park. But we really feel confident that MRC will be able to meet these needs. So if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, Bob.
So the not to exceed 200,000. What did we spend this year?
So the previous contract was $150,000 per year. I'd have to look back and see what we spent, but we actually had a separate contract for the Gallup Universal Access
Right,
Playground.
I understand
So I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head,
that. Okay.
but.
So, but our previous one was, so we're asking for 50,000 more on this one?
Yes, that's
Correct,
correct.
yeah.
Why?
The one from 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, I don't have the fees right in front of me,
Yeah.
but the 150,000, it was tight in the sense of the work that was done that year. I think we ended up expending about 145.
Okay.
And then there was obviously like the Gallup, the Rotary Playground is kind of an outlier, so
Yeah,
we wouldn't even
that's-
consider that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's to allow for if there is additional work that needs to be done, we can do that. We have it in the budget, and we certainly don't need to expend it.
I was curious if the increase is based on assessment of the overall state of our parks right now
Sure.
and their needs.
I mean, we do have 80 playgrounds within the park system, I think over 80 now,
Yeah.
actually. So we have a long list of places that could need upgrades. We don't have estimates per se for right now, but this allows us that flexibility for if things pop up along the way.
Other questions? Yeah, Alan.
The schools, a number of years ago, had some safety issues with some of their playground equipment. And then they went through and they removed, things that were potentially could cause strangulation and things like that.
Right.
Is there within the scope of this services, or is there some effort that's done to evaluate the safety of the playground equipment?
Yeah, we have city staff that regularly inspect the playgrounds and look for things that could be hazards. As you mentioned, things do fall out of compliance over time, standards change. So, whenever we're looking at upgrading something, we're looking for what equipment no longer meets current standards and making sure that that's upgraded. MRC does have what they call certified playground safety inspectors on staff that are trained and pass exams to know what the current standards are. So as part of this, we wouldn't necessarily be going out and having them do those inspections, but as things are brought to attention through our staff, we make sure those things are accommodated when we do upgrades.
It's actually something I've been pretty happy about over the last few years is we now have got 4 staff that are certified playground safety inspectors, Hillary being one of them. And there is a pretty regular inspection set for the playgrounds throughout the summertime. And then as the certified inspectors go through these playgrounds and they note if there are any deficiencies, then they're obviously responded to at that time. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of staying on top of that. And
Great,
then,
that's what I was looking for, so.
and then for sure, whenever there are replacements or improvements made to a playground thing, all of like the safety compliance things have to come up to date. So it's a good advantage to do that too, opportunity to do that.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Bob. Second by Lauren. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, motion passes. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Hillary. Moving on to commission proposed business, item G1 is the dog park subcommittee discussion. So as you'll all recall, back in December, we had members of the public come and bring up the idea of having a dog park or dog run in Burr Park. So we've talked with Colin, and previously there was a dog park subcommittee, and it looks like the best course of action would be to reinstate that subcommittee. Hillary would be part of that. And so we are looking for representatives from PAC, ideally 2, to be part of that subcommittee to really evaluate what the options are at Burr Park and see if we should move forward with a dog park, and if so, what that looks like. So you don't have to all raise your hands right now.
What is the commitment and how often do you meet?
Great question. Colin, do you want to take that, or?
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
And in your packet, there is the dog park site selection guidelines and recommendations that the previous subcommittee created.
So can you explain once again what the situation is? So that committee disbanded, or?
Yeah, so there was a subcommittee, or a task force really, to help with the site selection of the Broadway dog park. That was really to look into where should we go if we're going to have a centrally located dog park, and kind of agree upon, here's ways that we would evaluate the sites, here's how we would choose them, design principles, things like that. So after the report was done and the Broadway site was chosen, then the subcommittee's, I suppose, assignment concluded. And it's really something to be brought up on a ad hoc basis. So now, because there is interest in the community, there's been a petition to consider at Burr Park. I think it makes sense to go back to the criteria that we put together here for evaluating it, and that involves a subcommittee. In terms of the amount of meetings, it depends on how the site is received, frankly. If it's helpful, I don't have that readily available now. I can go through the steps and email all of PAC what I think would be kind of a time commitment for it, but it is going to be a little bit more hard to predict than some others, I would say.
I'll volunteer to be on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess I just have a question. I'm a lead on nextdoor.com, and I think I can say that the question of new dog parks I've seen come up in several other locations. So I guess my question is more about whether a subcommittee should just look at Burr, or should take some kind of a broader, like, is there an optimal number of dog parks in the city? And if so, is there a list of 5 sites that maybe in the next 10 years would be considered, or whatever? Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my initial reaction to that is if there are other groups that are interested in pursuing something, that they should certainly contact staff and PAC, as this individual has done. And if they're serious to that degree to look at it, I think that that's probably the best way to evaluate each one of those asks. It is worth remembering, though, that we do not have a dog park in the current CIP plan. We kind of identified the need for one in central Ann Arbor, and that was accomplished. So there's not another thing in the CIP set up for it. So there's no allocated or potential funding at this time. That's all something that would have to be discussed too, even if the site at Buer is agreed upon by the vast majority of people there. How it's going to be funded is another question.
And I can interject that there was an effort to make West Park a dog park. And there was some surprising and considerable pushback about that location that led to the producing this set of criterion. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and the reality is, like the 3 dog parks that we have are in locations that are not exactly bounded by residents. So trying to get to a stage where maybe there is a dog park that is more residential, that might take a lot. But that's what the process is for.
So in terms of next steps, Colin, you'll email PAC a list of what you think needs to be done, and then Praveena, thank you for volunteering. So.
And we would like maybe one more.
Yeah, and so if anyone else is interested, we can take a minute to think about it, but let us know.
Who's not here?
I do.
Apple would be great for it.
Yeah, Mike or Steven, yeah. Item H, report from Parks and Recreation Manager, Colin.
I don't have much today, so I'm just getting over the flu, so not all there. But we have, we're actually starting registrations for spring, summer, which seems amazing to me. That happens on February 5th. So at that time, you'll be able to register for day camps and programs in spring and summer. So if you can share the word, it'd be appreciated. The new online brochure will be available by about the end of the week. So you'll be able to browse through that online, and they will also be printed and delivered, but they don't have to have that take place beforehand. So that's everything for right now.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Item I, report from Recreation Advisory Commission. Ruth, do you have any updates?
No meetings since our last meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you. Item J, reports from relevant commissions, committees, boards, and our task forces. We have none. Item K, public commentary. I'm not seeing any members of the public right now. So we are adjourned. Thank you.